Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibhiriritam Kalmashapaham Sravanamangalam Srimadatatam Bhuvi Grananti Ye Bhurida Jana. The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna with the devotees at Dakshineshwar. So in the last class we saw that Sri Ramakrishna was speaking of the intense yearning, which is one of the most essential precondition for spiritual evolution. I said to Keshav Sen, when a father sees that his son has become restless for his inheritance, he gives him his share of the property even 3 years before the legal time. A mother keeps on cooking while the baby is in bed sucking its toy. But when it throws the toy away and cries for her, she puts down the rice pot and takes the baby in her arms and nurses it. I said all this to Keshav. So as we were saying that in the Yoga Sutra, that's the sutra, which speaks of this yearning, that our spiritual attainment is directly proportional to the yearning. The more the intense is your yearning, the more quickly, the more accelerated is our spiritual journey. It takes to the realization. So after that, we find Sri Ramakrishna is continuing his conversation, and he is now again speaking about the need for this intense yearning, especially in this Yuga, the Kali Yuga. Is what he's saying. It is said that in the Kali Yuga, if a man can weep for God one day and one night, he sees him. So, in the Gospel, in many places, Sri Ramakrishna is prescribing bhakti for Kali Yuga. That why? He's saying in his words, Kolite annogato pran. So it's generally very loosely translated that in Kali Yuga, in this age, man has to depend on food. Annagata prana. He has to depend on food. But when we translate that way, it loses its proper meaning. It's very difficult to translate in one word. That's why it's translated that way, that it depends on food. But what's the real meaning? That Kalite annagato pran. That as we have discussed in previous some other contexts too, that it's a paradox of human civilization, that all the progress in the human civilization is nothing but to find out more leisure. So we were the food gatherers, we became the food producers, and with that the leisure came. Once we started agriculture, just a part of the year we were busy with our food producing, and we had enough for the rest of the year. We stored the food in our granary, and now what to do with the leisure? So with the leisure came all other aspirations, which speaks of culture. That we find this art, music, all this thing came in the leisure. That what to do when I don't have to think of my sustenance. The mind has to be engaged, and that also in some higher pursuits. And that's how we find the culture has developed. Even the religion also came that way. As Sri Ramakrishna says in the Gospel in so many places that khali pete dharma hai na, that unless and until your basic needs are fulfilled, you cannot think of religion. So when we were food gatherers, we were always busy. Our ancestors were busy how to procure the food. Every day their sustenance, there was nothing called storage. Every day they have to move out, collect the food. They just have fed themselves in the evening, again then moved out in the morning. So the entire day they were busy just to keep themselves alive. So there to have the pursuit for some higher aspirations is almost impossible. That's what Sri Ramakrishna says, that in empty stomach you cannot think of religion. But with the laser, the religion too came along with the other art, that search for the higher meaning of life. Is there something beyond this physical domain of our existence? And that search led to all the spiritual truths which came as a revelation to all those who took this as a way of life exclusively. How they could take this life as exclusively? Because the society was there. A group of people was there. They said that we have enough food in our granary. It's not only sufficient for us, we can feed the entire village. But in turn, why not nourish us, entertain us with the art, with the music, and enrich us with whatever spiritual knowledge you gather through your wisdom, through your spiritual practices. So that's how we find this religious body came into existence, and the society, because of its own interest, started sustaining it. And this search for leisure is what is the main motivation behind all the civilization, even in the modern age. Just see how many gadgets we have at our house. All speaks of saving our time. Your dishwasher, your washing machine, just the vacuum cleaner, everything speaks of saving your time. But at last, do we have really in the present age any time left for leisure? We find we are so busy. That's the paradox of the civilization. From morning till evening, we have to work hard to just sustain ourselves. So this Kali Yuga speaks of that with all our effort, at last we find that just for our bare necessities we have to work so hard. Now when we had that leisure, that golden period, there we will find that all these elaborate spiritual practices came into existence. Those who believed in yaga, yajna, such elaborate ritualistic worships were there. And those who thought those are some fringes of the religion, they may give us some sort of higher state of existence, a better way of living in this life, and after death is probably a better, some higher sphere of existence. But it cannot give us the ultimate liberation. So this group of people also thought of some spiritual practices which were quite elaborate. In the yoga we find this eightfold path. It actually entails in your full life dedication. Yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, this dharana, dhyana, samadhi, all these things, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, all this speaks of your entire life engagement. In all the spiritual traditions, we see the practices are so elaborate, so intensive. Now, though with the progress of civilization we were in search of leisure, but we find there is no leisure. Now all those practices which we developed in that golden period, we find they are almost redundant. We cannot practice such elaborate practices. Where is the time? So that's why Sri Ramakrishna is saying that bhakti is for this yoga. Why? That there is no need for all those elaborate practices. Just try to keep your mind in God whenever possible. In his simple words, whenever there is leisure, with your both hands hold on to God. When there is no leisure, with one hand do your worldly duties, with the other hand hold on to God. Whatever you are doing, do it with a sense of offering to the divine. And this alone entails our spiritual journey. We cannot think of all those elaborate spiritual practices. That, as we find even in the Gospel, Sri Ramakrishna mentions that in those ages, the rishis used to go deep in the forest. Throughout the day, they will be doing all sorts of spiritual practices, meditating. At the dusk, they will come back, have a little food, little herbs and some roots, fruits and herbs. And again in the morning, they go deep in the forest, totally cut off from the society, fully, exclusively giving their entire time for spiritual practices. That's not possible. In this age, it is almost impossible. So, what's the way out? Bhakti. To constantly think of God, whatever you are doing, and try to develop that yearning. That let the thought of God become like a toothache. These are the words like mantras in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. That constantly thinking of divine should become so spontaneous that it always occupies a part of your mind. Just when we have toothache, we cannot forsake our responsibilities. We still have to do our work. But can we forget the toothache? It is there constantly reminding me of that pain. Then part of my mind is connected to that always. I can never forget it. Sri Ramakrishna is saying, let the thought of the God become that habitual. And if I can make it that habitual, the yearning increases. And he says that in this yuga, the advantage is that you need not have to go through all the intense spiritual practices. As the hindrances are very strong, so the chance of developing yearning is more. You can develop very intense yearning. You will find that when someone is in love with someone, the more the hindrances, the more intensity of the passion is. The same thing happens in Kali Yuga. A little love if I can develop, then these hindrances become actually a positive factor. These hindrances results in this viraha. This viraha dasha in Bhakti Shastra is spoken of very high, because it makes you constantly think of your beloved. And this intense thought, that brings the tivra samvega, the tremendous yearning. So as we were mentioning, it's not mere repetition that speaks of creating a deep mark in your mind. That repetition, how intense it is. If it is intense, then repetition is not required. That we give that example, that we forget so many things in life. Even when we were studying for our academic education before the exam, so many things we tried to learn we just memorize them. Once the exam is over, we forget how much effort went on just to memorize those things, but we forget. How much of those academic education do we remember? We forget everything. But if it so happened that you will find in life certain incidences happen. Like I was driving, I was about to meet an accident because some car from the opposite direction came. I don't know whose fault it is. Let us not just think, but there was about to be a head-on collision. And I was so scared to death at that moment. This fear of death made my mind so focused that the accident was averted at the last moment. I was saved. But this impression, if someone asks what happened, till the end of my life, I can go through the details in slow motion, each and every moment, what happened. With a vivid description, I can say. Nothing I forget. Why? Because at that time, because of the fear of death, the mind was so focused that one experience, that experience need not be repeated. That created such an indelible mark in the mind. So in spiritual life, we speak of repetition. But if yearning is there, that repetition becomes unnecessary. Just that with tremendous focus, it can take you to that highest realization in very short time. Because now you have dharana. The spiritual truth, you never forget. It has been internalized. As Swamiji says, the education is nothing but the nervous association of ideas. That we just read, but it has nothing to do with our life. But there are certain things called reflexes. Even when I'm in deep sleep, something hot touches my hand. Immediately my hand is repelled. It gets repelled. And the science will say, that neurology will say, it is called reflex. There is no need for conscious decision. It's just your hand touches hot pot, it immediately will, without a conscious decision, it will move out. So when you create an indelible mark in your mind, when Sri Ramakrishna created that, after all these worldly entanglements is something which is hindrance for a spiritual journey, so I have to forsake all worldly attachments. No wealth, I shouldn't touch coins. And it became his nervous association. Even unknowingly, if his hand touches any metal, he will feel pain, his hand will get repelled. So this happens because of that intense yearning, where all the spiritual values gets internalized. And it takes you to the realization almost immediately. And that's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying, that in Kali Yuga, if you can somehow develop that little bhakti, now you have to do nothing. The hindrance factor is so intense that your yearning is bound to become very intense because of these hindrances. As we were saying, that when someone is in love with someone, the more the hindrance, the more the passion for meeting that person, meeting the beloved. So the same thing happens here. The tremendous yearning develops, and that's why Sri Ramakrishna is saying that in this Kali Yuga, that in spite of all the distractions, it has an advantage. If you develop a little bhakti, all these hindrances will become a positive factor in helping you to develop intense yearning. And just in one day, he's saying, you need not have to go for years. If you can weep for God one day and one night, he sees him, he realizes him. So this intense yearning is very important. After speaking of that intense yearning, he's giving this specific example, that what to speak of months and these years for spiritual practice. If you have that intensity in one day and one night, you can go to that realization. And it is not something just mere words. In Sri Ramakrishna's life, we find that his entire spiritual journey is something like just breaking the citadel of this, conquering the citadels of all religious realization in short time. He never took more than 3 days to go for each of the spiritual practices taking to that particular realization. He realized God in so many aspects with that intense yearning. At last, to come to that realization, Jato Mot Tato Pot. There are many ways to reach the God, not just one destination. The divinity has many aspects. In all the aspects, by following a particular path, I can realize him. And that's what Sri Ramakrishna did in his life. And he is speaking from his own realization. These are the words which is very direct. He doesn't go through reasoning, because it is something which has been experienced through his life, and he's speaking out from his experience, and he's speaking directly from his experience with full assertion that yes, if you have that intensity, in one day, in one night, you can weep intensely. You can just weep for God with full earnestness. You can realize him. You can see him. And then feel picked for God and say to him, you have created me. Now you must reveal yourself to me. In gospel, in so many other contexts, we find Sri Ramakrishna is saying that the 3 gunas are there, sattva, raja, tama. So when you are asserting something, as if you are in rage, anger, that you are not revealing yourself to me, you have to do. You are asserting, you are as if showing your anger. That is the tama of bhakti, bhakti tamo. So that's the beauty of bhakti. In other path, we have to renounce the 3 gunas, to go beyond the 3 gunas, to reach that realization. Here we can take the help of the 3 gunas by sublimating them. I am not angry for any worldly thing, It's not that the worldly, as some worldly attainments I have been deprived from, my rage is for that. No. That I have some possession, some wealth, someone took it away from me, and that's why I'm angry. I need it. I have to get it back immediately. That's the rage sometimes we have. That rage we have when we are driving the car. We are in some hurry and we find someone driving in front of me very slowly, and the tremendous rage. We will find that it often happens in the street, that you start when the traffic lights are already green, you get bit delayed. The one who is at the back is tremendous. The road rage is a common thing. So that is tamasic. That speaks of destruction, that destroys yourself, that destroys others. But here, this rage, you have to divert. If you have to be angry with God, why don't you give me vision? You have to. If you are my creator, if you are the one who is sustaining me, it is my right to have this vision. This spiritual realization is my birthright. You have to. So this assertion, so you are using this rage by sublimating it to increase your devotion. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying, that use this tama by sublimating it. So you do not have to forcefully reject it, channelize it for the God realization. Feel picked at God and say to Him, you have created me, now you must reveal yourself to me. Whether you live in the world or elsewhere, always fix your mind on God. So that's the thing. That constantly Sri Ramakrishna again and again saying that this is our only duty, that whatever we are doing, that our mind has to be kept fixed on God. That's the only way that we can attain the spiritual realization in this age. Keep your mind in God. The mind cannot do multitasking. That throughout the day we go on thinking so many thoughts, but at a time it thinks only one thought. It jumps from one thought to other at such a fast pace, which makes us think we are doing multitasking. It goes on changing its focus from one activity to the other at a very fast pace, giving us this false idea that we are multitasking. But actually, at a time, at a moment, the mind, it is the limitation of the mind. It can have only one thought. If that's so, the more we can keep the mind on God, the more the other distractions are bound to fall off. So that's the easiest path. The easy way. Keep your mind in God. Fix your mind in God. So that becomes the cleansing factor. That becomes if you think of God, God is all pure, and that speaks of the purity of your mind. So it's not just the mere external purity, shaucha. Even in Yoga Sutra, when they define shaucha, the cleanliness, as one of the niyamas, after describing that you have to keep your body clean, they say, but the real shaucha is the antas shaucha. Keep the mind clean. That's the real cleanliness. And this trying to keep the mind always in God is that anta shaucha, the inner cleanliness. And that's the thing Sri Ramakrishna is saying. And then next thing he was saying, the mind soaked in worldliness may be compared to a wet match stick. You won't get a spark, however much you may rub it. So taking the name of God, but at the same time, bhaber ghare churi, Sri Ramakrishna is saying in the gospel, there shouldn't be any theft in your bhava, in what you are doing. You have to do it sincerely. We will find that as it has been prescribed that we should take God's name, people show off their religion. They will be having their rosary in their hand, in its rosary bag, moving around and doing all sorts of work as if marketing his spirituality, that I am taking the name of the God, but you will find that his mind is actually entangled with the world. It is just a mere mechanical show going on. So that's the matchstick, wet matchstick. It's full of worldliness. That won't help. So if I am taking the name of God, that focus should be there. It has to be focused. When I am doing my work, if I have to give my mind in work, well, let us not pretend. At the beginning of the work, with full sincerity, let me pray to the divine and say, now I have to give my time to this work. I am doing it as an offering to you. Just the way when the mother is cooking the meal for the child, she has to cook the best meal for the child. And for that she has to focus on what she is doing. So similarly, if I have to offer something to the divine, I have to be fully focused. I cannot say, as I have kept my mind in God, so my work has become something of low quality. No, it's the best thing because I have to offer it to the divine. So when I am going for the work, I pray to him and I just say that now whatever I am doing with a sense of offering it to you. So at the end of the day, I keep my mind in my work with a sense of offering to the divine. At the end of the work, I again pray with a sense, yes, this I have done, this I offer to you. What's the meaning of that? That I have no claim for the result. Whether it is going to, that even in my job, that's the main problem. So whether my job is that we find that in the present age, the job scenario is so unpredictable. When we lose our job, many are losing the job, many are not getting the promotions as desired. But we will find the real suffering is because constant entanglement. What will happen? What will happen? The thing which is going to happen will happen at some time. But just thinking of it, even I am spoiling my present. If I would have done with a sense of offering, I have done, given it to the God and told God, now it's your responsibility. What you are going to do with me, it's up to you. I have nothing to just do with it. I have nothing to think about it. There's a Tagore song, this Tomar holo shuru, amar holo shara. Tomai amai mile, emni boy dhara. So sometimes these songs, words are simple, but it has some very, this profound meaning which we cannot understand. Just, what's that? For you, it's the beginning. For me, it's the end. And that's our relation. That's what is relation. What it means? Once I have offered to the divine. Now it's God's responsibility. All his concerns is his. For me, it's over. It's over. For you, it has the beginning. For me, it's over. And that's our relation. Tomai amai mine, emni bohe dhara. So this is the idea, wonderful idea. Once I have offered it, now I have no more bothered about it. And that's how a devotee's life should be. That even in Bhagavatam, this wonderful sloka is there. Yasyang vai sruyamanayam Krishne paramapurushe bhakti utpadyate pungsa shokha moha bhayapaha. That somehow, by listening to this tales of the divine incarnation, his Leela, I have not planned. Somehow I came to just hear it. And I developed a liking for it. That's the beauty of those divine tales, of all those Leela Katha. And when I have developed this liking for it, gradually that helped me to develop this devotion to the Paramapurusha, to Sri Krishna, to the Lord. And what's its effect? What's its effect? This shoka moha bhayapaha. That it takes away all the afflictions, shoka, moha, delusion, and bhaya, fear from my life. So that's the beauty of the devotion, which if we can do it in the proper sense. Otherwise what happens? As we find in the meditation and spiritual life, Swami Yatishwaran, that's a very famous book. There he gives a very nice, funny example. That a group of drunkards were rowing the boat throughout the night. And in the morning, at the daybreak, they found they're in the same place. And then they realized that all their effort is waste because they have forgotten to remove the anchor, just to pull out the anchor. The anchor, they were keeping the anchors, with the anchor stuck. If you go on rowing the boat, you will be rowing in the same place. And that's what happens if we are not trying to get rid of the worldliness by sincerely thinking of the divine. If we think of the divine sincerely, the worldliness has to fall out. But if there is theft in the bhava, bhaver ghare churi, then we make a show of religion, as if we are always taking the name of the God, but his mind is soaked in worldliness. And that way, there we can never attain any spiritual illumination. That's what he's saying. The mind soaked in world. After saying that you have to fix your mind always in God, the next he's saying the mind soaked in worldliness may be compared to a wet matchstick. You won't get a spark, however much you may rub it. So this rubbing it means you're repeating the name of God, but it is already soaked with worldliness. It's not going to help us. So that's these two things are necessary. Ishware Anurag, Vishaye Virag. These two actually speaks of the entire spiritual journey. That your devotion for God and dispassion for the world. Ishware Anurag, dispassion for all worldly objects. Vishaye Virag. So this defines our spiritual journey. That's what Sri Ramakrishna is speaking of. And this tremendous faith is required. This faith he is speaking of. Ekalavya placed the clay image of Drona, his teacher, in front of him and thus learned archery. So this is a very interesting thing. So the teaching is limited, but the learning is unlimited. So actual learning is just by removing all the so-called barriers in our mind. As Swami Vivekananda defined education so nicely. What is education? Education is the manifestation of perfection already in man. It's not that the teacher imparts education. Teacher just gives the suggestion. It is we, by getting rid of all the impediments in the process of knowledge, which is the knowledge which is already within us, that has to manifest. It is all lying. It is just like a seed. A gardener waters the seed, and from the seed the plant comes. Can the gardener just germinate a plant from a rock by watering it? No. It has to be a seed. The watering is just a process. It's just aiding. But the inherent power for growing into a tree is in the seed. The dormant power is in the seed. The teacher is just like a gardener watering the plant. And sometimes he acts like a placebo, as in the case of Ekalavya. The knowledge is within, all the skills are within. The guru is just like a placebo. In a very nice sutra is there in Yoga Sutra, in the third sutra of the 4th chapter. What is that? Nimittam aprayojakam prakritinam varana bhedastu yatha tatah kshetrikavat. When the farmer is bringing water from a canal, has he have to carry the water from the canal to his field? And that tremendous effort is required for that? No, it's not required. Most probably there is a dam by the side of the canal. He makes a small hole on the dam and the water flows in by its own, because of its own nature, inherent nature of flow. It just, what the farmer has done has just removed the obstacle. So all the inherent, this power of the nature is within us. And there is a barrier in the form of I cannot do, this is my limitations, all those negativities is a border. Once we can remove that, the skills, the knowledge that manifests itself. And sometimes the teacher, as in the case of Ekalavya, is just like a placebo. Sometimes when we are we are having some disease, and the doctor, instead of giving medicine, may give us some placebo. It's not a medicine, just maybe it's just a glucose globule. And now I have a feeling, doctor has given me the medicine. After taking it, I will get cured. So the power to get cured is already within me. Somehow the idea was there. It's a very incurable disease. Most probably I won't be cured. I go to the doctor, he gives medicine, he says, you will be okay. Just take it. There's a obstruction created by the negativity that's removed. The doctors, this placebo is just a suggestion. And my inherent power to heal myself, that works. once the obstruction of the negativity is gone. So that speaks of the tremendous Shraddha. When you have faith, all the the obstructions, the hindrances, they fall off, and the inherent power within you, the inherent divinity within you manifests itself. So that's why if you have faith in the words of the Guru, that can really create wonders. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. Have faith. Don't think what I am saying is just mere words. It is something which has been experienced by me in my life. If you have faith, it's not that I will be just imparting that spiritual realization to you. It will happen in its own, by your inherent nature only. If you have faith, this faith will allow to get rid of all this, these hindrances, and the inner divinity will manifest naturally. So in the life of Jesus also we find that whenever he is curing someone, and someone is coming and praising Jesus, oh, you have cured him, Jesus' reply was, his faith has healed him. Again and again we'll find this word he's saying, his faith has healed him. So this is the thing, that in place of Ekalavya also the same thing, that knowledge is within, education is the manifestation of the perfection already within, divinity is the manifestation of the religion is the manifestation of the divinity already within, and just Guru helps to remove the obstacle. Our faith in the Guru helps remove the obstacle, and all the knowledge manifests by itself. So go forward. The woodcutter, following the instructions of the holy man, went forward and found in the forest sandalwood and mines of silver and gold, and going still farther, he found diamonds and other precious stones. So that's the story which Sri Ramakrishna in the Gospel have, in so many contexts, have just related this wonderful parable, that we all are familiar with that a woodcutter was poor. He used to just sell some firewood. He used to just in the fringes of the forest, he never used to go deep into the forest, just in the fringes he used to gather some firewood and sell, and with that he used to sustain himself. And one day from the deep forest, a brahmachari came, a holy man came and told, go inside, what are you doing here? There's a lot of treasures there, go forward. And first the woodcutter never believed in him, and one day he thought, let me just believe in his words, let me just try, let me just endeavor. And one day he went a bit deep into the forest. He found that the first this forest, actually it's a forest of sandalwood. Then by selling sandal he became rich, and then he again thought, he asked me to go forward. He never asked me just to go where the sandalwood is there. So the trees of sandalwood are there. He asked me to go forward. Let me go still deeper into the forest. And then he found gold mines. Still deeper he found the mines of diamond. And he became richer and richer. There was no end to his wealth. So what the story says, that in spiritual life also, most of us, when we get a little devotion, immediately we start feeling extremely satisfied and just start glorifying it. Say everyone, oh, I have this realization. And our spiritual journey stops there. Don't be satisfied with this little yearning which you have developed, a little love for God which you have developed. You should go forward. It should go to that until you realize God. It becomes something, a palpable truth in your life. Don't stop. Go forward. Go deeper. So that's the thing he's saying, that one shouldn't be satisfied by the attainment just of a little devotion. So he should go for that realization, which is the only goal of the human life. That's what Sri Ramakrishna is stressing again and again. The ignorant are like people living in a house with clay walls. There is very little light inside, and they cannot see outside at all. But those who enter the world after attaining the knowledge of God are like people living in a house made of glass. For them, both inside and outside are light. They can see things outside as well as inside. So when they say that ignorant people are living in the house made of clay walls, And he's saying there's little light. So if we try to relate the words, we'll find something interesting. First he said that that don't be satisfied, that go forward. So here he's saying that a house made of clay, there is very little light. So it doesn't speak of total ignorance. Most probably he has developed a little love in his heart. He feels it. And he thinks it to be the be-all and end-all of his spiritual journey. That little light which he has got inside. And he sees no light outside. This is staying in the clay house. And the one who is staying in the glass house, light is both within and without. And there is abundance of light. What it speaks of? That little yearning which I have developed, that little light, if I really progress, go forward, if I yearn for higher spiritual realization, a time will come when I realize the divinity within. Not only that, when I come down from that realization, I find the God, the ultimate reality, which is the core of the entire existence, is manifesting as this entire world. Jnana, Vijnana. The state of Vijnani, which Sri Ramakrishna speaks again and again in the Gospel. That's the highest state. When Swami Vivekananda wanted to be deep in Samadhi, merged Samadhi, Sri Ramakrishna told that that's not the highest. Don't be so mean to just be stuck in that position. There is a stage beyond that, where you see God within and without. It is you only who sing. That's the song, Jo kuch hai so tu hi hai. Don't you sing that song? That's the highest position. Everything is He. So when you go to the realization, when you develop little love, then you can become very selfish. A little love, okay, whenever I get chance, I forsake my duty, I sit down and try to enjoy the bliss of my meditation, and I think that's the end of my spiritual journey. That can make us extremely selfish. But if I really yearn for spiritual realization, I become like a Buddha who has no reason to continue with his life. We can become like a Jesus, Buddha, Ramakrishna. For them, they have attained the goal of life. But then that unbound compassion comes from their heart. Why? Because it is they who realize the spiritual truth which they have realized in their deep samadhi. When they open their eyes, now the world has transformed for them. It is the same divinity which they find has been projected as the entire universe. Now they see nothing but God. And that's what has been spoken of as seeing God within and without. So till you go to that state, you can never become that selfless. And as long as the self is there, you are not free. When shall I be free? When I cease to be. That I is still there. Maybe that I is now hooked to sattva. I like to be in deep meditation. That's good. That's your attachment to the sattva. That's why they say you have to go beyond the three gunas, three gunatita. Even that bliss is an hindrance. Even a golden chain is also a chain. Go forward. Break all the shackles and be free. And that's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. An ignorant are like the people living in a house with clay walls. There is a very little light inside. And they cannot see outside at all. That's a little devotion. There is a little light inside. A little devotion has developed. And that's what they want to always stay with. But those who enter the world after attaining the knowledge of God, just see, these words are so important, are like people living in the house made of glass. For them, both inside and outside are light. They can see things outside as well as inside. They see God within and also realize the world as nothing but the manifestation of the divine. Jnana, leading to Vijnana. Nothing exists. Nothing exists. That's why we say that each and every sentence he is saying, he is speaking, that there is a continuation of the thought. See, after saying that, what he is saying? Nothing exists except the One. The One is the Supreme Brahman. So long as he keeps the I in us, he reveals to us that it is he who, as the primal energy, creates, preserves and destroys the universe. So this Tatastha Lakshana. As long as the I is there, then the God is realized as the creator, preserver and destroyer. When beyond the I, he is as it is. It is when the I comes into existence, then the question of this creation, preservation, destruction come. I see the ultimate reality as the God, as the creator. To give an example, just take the soil. There is no manifestation of life. It is just pure soil, fertile soil. I put a seed. That seed is like that ego. The moment I put the seed, the soil which was appearing as something dormant, lifeless, it has fertility. The seed is just like the ego. What it does, it collects the nutrients from the soil, and the entire manifestation of the tree is nothing but the soil transformed into that tree, isn't it? All the nutrients, everything is coming from, they are being assimilated, and that is getting converted into this tree. And this idea is even there, even in India. That's the wonder. Even I still remember in Belur Math, from this Raipur, from our Narayanpur, this small boys, the students there, we have a school there for the tribals. They came and they did this Dandi dance with, that they can walk on the sticks. With that wonderful dance they did, and the song, the song which was on the background of the dance was this. This body is nothing but the soil and soil alone. That's the thing, that's the truth. The soil getting transformed into the tree, we eat that, and again the tree is getting converted into our body. It is nothing but that soil. This mati ke kaya, that was the line, that first one line I still remember. And it was a simple words in that, and it was in that tribal dialect, but still you can understand because it's after all Hindi with its tribal accent. That was the song. So what's the idea? The soil which appears as lifeless, the seed like the ego, the moment you plant on it, then that seed becomes like the shore of creation, preservation, destruction. The tree is created, it stays for some time, again it is destroyed. It again gets mixed with the soil. The soil as such, which appears as lifeless. That expression of creation, preservation, destruction can be found when I plant a seed. The seed is like the ego. So we can just say that the soil's fertility is unmanifest unless the seed is sowed. The moment the seed is sowed, the unmanifested fertility of the soil manifests as the tree, isn't it? All the nutrients are there. The seed is like the ego, and the fertile soil is like the primal energy. So this Brahma Shakti is Abhed. Again and again, this Sri Ramakrishna is saying that as we had this idea of Brahman, that's why in Vedic culture the concept of zero was invented. We could conceive of zero because of that idea of Brahman. What is Brahman? It is not nothingness. We don't believe that God created this world out of nothing. We never believe that. The entire God himself has manifested as the creation. Before the creation, everything was in a balanced state. Just last we take an example of a magnet. It's actually an iron bar where all the magnetic dipoles have got aligned in such a way that the north poles are all facing in the one direction, the south poles are facing another direction, and that has converted the iron bar into a magnet. When the poles were not aligned, then what happened? It was just an iron bar. Magnetism was not manifested in it. Why? Because the magnetic effect of one dipole was negating the other. As a result, the net result was zero. So what it speaks? That when the primal energy is in balanced state, it appears as zero. That is Brahman. It appears as if nothing is there. But it is the balanced state. So this Brahman, as we conceived of the idea of Brahman, that's why we could conceive of the idea of zero. And when that balance is broken, and when this all the poles are aligned, now you get north pole, south pole, and you find the manifestation of energy in the form of magnetism, the expression of the Shakti. So this Brahman and the Shakti are one and the same. That it is because of this ego. Just the way you need another magnet to convert an iron bar into a magnet. Similarly, this ego has to work as if express the primal energy into the forces of this creation, preservation and destruction. But otherwise, the seed which signifies the ego is like the tatastha lakshana, tatastha. Just because of the ego, in respect to the ego, we can understand that there is something which is manifesting, which is being preserved, and again it goes to the destruction. So we can never know the ultimate clarity because of this tata, the something like the ego which is on its shore. That example which we have in Vedanta, these examples are wonderful. That a river is flowing, there is a tree, I cannot see the river. If someone asks where is the river, I say just by that you can see the tree, just by the side of that tree, just by the bank of the tree the river is flowing. Tatastha. Similarly, by seeing the world, we with our mind can conceive of the idea of something which is manifesting as this creation. Without this reference, I can in no way see it. I can in no way conceive of it. Unless this referral point is there. That example which we give again and again, that no one has seen light. Only when the light falls on an object and it gets illumined, from it we can know the presence of light. Light itself is not seen, is not visible. We cannot see gravitation unless we see a falling object. Seeing the falling object, I know about gravitation. Similarly, seeing this, when the ego has evolved, with the ego when I am experiencing this Srishti, Sthiti, Pralaya, from that I can conceive that there is something, there must be something behind it. So that's the idea of this this ego. When this ego is there, then only this primal energy can be experienced. Otherwise, it's just the Brahman which is finding expression as a primal energy. They are actually the same thing. That there's just the way that we cannot think of the fertility without the soil. They're together, the soil and the fertility. We cannot think of the heat without the fire. Can I separate them? No. Can I separate the water from its this fluidity, flow? No. So these are inseparable. Similarly, Brahman and his Shakti are inseparable. From one standpoint, it appears as the primal energy, and from this another perspective, it is the Brahman and Brahman alone. So and then Sri Ramakrishna gives a nice example. What he says, once a king asked a yogi to impart knowledge to him in one word. The yogi said, all right, you will get knowledge in one word. After a while, a magician came to the king. The king saw the magician moving two of his fingers rapidly and heard him exclaim, behold, O king, behold. The king looked at him amazed when after a few minutes he saw the two fingers becoming one. The implication of the story is that Brahman and the primal energy at first appears to be two, but after attaining the knowledge of Brahman, one does not see the two. Then there is no differentiation. It is one without a second. Advaita, non-duality. So that's the idea which Sri Ramakrishna is speaking of. This Brahma, Shakti, Abhed. They are the one and the same reality. They are the obverse and the reverse of the same coin. So with this, we stop our discussion today. Thank you all. We'll continue with the succeeding conversations again in the next class. So with this, we conclude our class. Thank you.